Okay, so let's talk about the game. So similar to how I do reviews in the past, I'm going to try to summarize the story to the best of my ability from my understanding of it. It's probably not going to be accurate. It's probably not going to be complete. And also because this spanned over multiple sessions and multiple weeks, I probably am going to forget some details. So I apologize if I say something incorrect or make assumptions and say that game is X and Y, even if I make a mistake and stuff like that. So, in the prologue section, you play as Sun Wukong in a confrontation against the Celestial Court. The fight goes on, and an accident happens, and Wukong is slain in battle and sealed in a stone on a mountain. Hundreds of years go by, from my understanding, 300 plus go by, and we are one of the descendants of Sun Wukong. Here on out, he is referred to as the Destined One, so I'm going to refer to him as that. The Destined One is tasked to go around and find the various relics that Wukong left behind after his passing, after his defeat. And that's what we do throughout the 5 chapters in the game, technically. We go around and fight different people that have gotten pieces, these relics, these senses of Wukong, and that have been corrupted by it and have done bad deeds or have been drunk on power or something like that. There are various sort of side characters that I don't really know have any plot. And really the only reoccurring character, I think, from chapter 3 onward to the remainder of the game is Baji, one of Kong's original companions from the Tales to the West. I should also preface this, that this is loosely based on events and characters and interpretations that have happened of Tales of the West, which is a Chinese novel. I don't know if it's an anthology or not. Regardless, I apologize. And we go around and also fight characters or have encounters with people that have been referenced in those books. I have not read Tales to the West, so the impact of some of these characters and some of the effects that Wukong's have done and were cleaning up his mess per se have just not fell a little flat. Some of these characters were greatly designed and greatly written, but since it did pull from the source and I didn't know the source outside of Wukong and some of it, a lot of it didn't quite make sense to me. If there was any additional hidden meaning behind the locations or why certain people had certain relics, etc., don't know. Then by the end of the story, we have collected 5 of the 6 relics of Wukong, the last relic being what I am interpreting is yourself. The 6th relic is the mind relic, but Wukong's mind was lost, and you, the Destined One, had to become the mind relic in order to fulfill his role and become Wukong. The game kind of tells you that you should be like reviving, or you're collecting it to revive Wukong and stuff like that. But the game sort of pulls the rug underneath you and it's like, oh no. You're a descendant of him. You're just taking up his mantle. Which makes a little bit more sense than reviving a dead guy with 6 of his senses. But I don't know if that was meant to be a big shock or not. That was just sort of at the end of the game, right before the 6-part boss fight, which I have my own gripes about. After subduing the they called it the shell of the Great Sage, Wukong's shell. That's when it becomes a little bit more hazy. I don't know if we're trapped in the stone, if we're being reborn. I don't know. I don't understand the ending scene where we are in this stone on top of the mountain. I'm not entirely sure if that's pulling like a reference from the source that's supposed to make the scene make a little bit more sense, but to me it doesn't. From my understanding, we took the mine's place and died. And that's the story from my understanding. Yes, we meet Zodiac creatures along the way. I probably missed a few in my own gameplay. I know I missed a lot of content in Chapter 2 when I was looking up like how to unlock certain things. But let's move on. The game itself was a beautiful game. The environments were really well crafted. Had a good linear feel to it with some backtracking, which I can greatly appreciate over a massive open world, similar to what the 5th act was. 5th? The final act. I'll just say the final act, where it was just a large area that you flied around on the cloud and you found bosses. That was a poorly designed area because it was a lot of empty space that didn't really have anything. It was beautiful, but different than what the previous acts were and felt out of place. We got access to that cloud at the end that gave us the ability to go in the open world until we defeated the bosses and progressed a little bit, and then it became useless. Yes, that's correct, Arbomb. I don't know if I could have used the cloud in previous levels to access things. But I don't know. I'm also listening to your monologue. Thanks. So, the game was aesthetically beautiful. Had really solid designs, really great levels. But you need to have a secret conversation with her. Interesting. So the cave chapter, which I think was Act 4 in the poison area, and then we go to the underside, was a very dark level. And I don't like dark levels. It makes it hard to see. I feel like it's a cop-out to make the level uninteresting from a game design perspective. Anything that like obscures your ability to see, not a huge fan of. But everything else that I've talked about, I've enjoyed. Act 1 was a beautiful forest. Act 2 was wonderful desert, sand, hybrid type thing. Act 3 was a snow biome that absolutely wrecked the performance of my computer. And it was also a abnormally long act compared to the next 3. Yeah, and I guess Act 5 would have been the lava. So it's actually Act 6 that I'm talking about that was open world. The lava world was nice too. And the game has a lot of replay value. Huge skill tree, stuff that you can't get on your first playthrough and you have to get in your second playthrough. It's great. Great. But to talk about the bad things about the game, the camera was frustrating to work with. The arenas that you fought bosses and fought enemies were very small or in hallways, and you generally had to kill someone to get through them. But if you were pinned up against the wall or something like that, you couldn't see anything. You couldn't see what your character was doing. You couldn't see enemy attacks coming. And I felt that I was fighting the camera a lot. Quite a bit, actually. I was very frustrated with how the camera behaved. When it came down to the combat system, I found that the combat system, despite you playing Wukong with a bow staff and how your moves were very like flowy, it felt really clunky. It felt like I was executing like these 18 move combos with like 3 button presses, when the game's boss loops often dictated a more hit and run style, and it felt very bad. The light attack loop was always the same light attack combo. The heavy attacks would change based on your stances, but the light attack loop of hit, spin, and then jump slam made it very difficult to actually execute that combo without getting hit, without taking damage. And it kind of sucked. The light attack system sucked. Heavy attack system I liked. The focus system was unique, and I guess my biggest problem with how the focus system worked was that focus was consumed on cast rather than on hit. And you got interrupted a lot in this game. So that means that you spent a long time, a long series of combos to build up 2, 3, 4 focus points, and you would waste them because you got hit. Or yeah, that's pretty much it. Didn't like that. If you're gonna give me a resource, make it so that the resource expends when it does something and not when I trigger it. Because it also took a really long time to execute things with the heavy attacks. It wasn't like a quick thing. It took 2 seconds or so to execute it. The skill trees were interesting. That's about it. I don't know how much I actually enjoyed everything in the skill tree, because I felt that things were like clearly better than others. I liked my immobilize. I liked the stone. And there was no change for the pluck. And then the summon system, all sort of there. I played around with it a lot. Played around with it. There was things that I liked more than others about it in terms of the spells. What I don't like, however, is the fact that the spells had a massive timer and also consumed a resource. You don't want something to cost mana that has a 1.5-minute cooldown time. Because boss fights, you could probably only, like the pluck, you could only probably get it off once. And if you get interrupted, which happens a lot, because that's like a 5-second casting time, then you lose all your mana and you can't use your other spells. And some things just weren't like enjoyable. Like whenever you put up the stone guard and you got the counter off, or if they broke you, which I don't know if there was a tell to tell which attack they would get knocked out of versus not, versus like it just bouncing. But it It was good for damage mitigation, but its effect was minimal. Immobilize sometimes worked, sometimes didn't, but it was just better than Ring of Fire. And Spellbinder, sure, I used it at the end for the final boss because Immobilize was useless. Ring of Fire wouldn't have helped because we move around too much in the area for Ring of Fire. I don't know if the skill tree would have fixed that, but the Ring of Fire area was too small. So I used Spellbinder to have more light attack and more heavy attack damage. And also by the time I upgraded, it also gave me more focus whenever I hit and stuff like that. So it worked there. It seemed weird that I couldn't turn off Spellbinder. I could only turn it on. And that's also not fun. Especially during a boss battle. Like, it already consumes all of my resource. And there's no good way of recovering mana. So why couldn't I turn it off? The Gourd system I liked. I found it a good refreshing way of looking at a Souls-like Estus Flask recovery mechanic. You had different types of flasks that had different effects, and then you can do secondary effects. It's great. I liked it. Fantastic. That's really all I can say about it. It's fantastic. Some things were better than others, but depending on your playstyle, it would be better. Or some would be better and some would be worse. I took the playstyle of... I took as many health recoveries as I needed. And I gave me something that allowed me to recover mana. It gave me something that reduced the... or that had a chance, of not consuming a charge, which I think just blows away all the other ones. Like, well, it depends how little, or there was no percentages, so if it was like 5% or something like that, it probably wouldn't have been worth it. But when I see a chance to not consume a charge on a limited resource, I feel like I need to use that, because everything else doesn't matter. I need to heal. I would like the opportunity to heal the most, even during boss fights, even during running around between shrines and stuff like that. I feel like it was clearly a better choice. But the overall flask mechanic I liked. The curio mechanic, which sort of counts as talismans, sort of counts as rings in different sort of RPG elements. Not good, not bad. That's pretty much all I can say. The only thing that was kind of strange in terms of all that were the vessels. You got them from... Well, one you got from completing... Just progressing through Act 5. And then all the other ones, most of which I missed, you got them from completing an optional side quest in a chapter. Which like I said, I missed most. That's not a problem with the game. That's a problem with me. So I can't really speak about the efficacy of some of them. But definitely the fire mantle definitely helped in Act 5. Definitely helped in Act 5 with all the lava and stuff like that. Didn't have to worry about getting burnt. Enemy design was fine. Across all of the chapters, they were fairly unique enemies. It didn't really feel repetitive. It did feel repetitive fighting the same enemies within the chapter, but it's not like I fought the same, and the wolf Yaguais are different than the centipede lava things that are different from the lizard skeletal things. The enemy variety was good, and I did enjoy that. What I didn't like in terms of the enemies was... Oh god, I lost my train of thought. I like the enemy variety, but dealing with multiple enemies, especially since you have a bow staff, felt like you had really limited options. They didn't really hurt, and they weren't super dangerous, unless if you got womboed or something like that. but it felt like you never could deal with large groups, which is very Souls-like, but it felt very uncharacteristic of the weapon choice that we had. I felt like there should have been more abilities to do AoE stuff. What else mechanic was there? The vessels. The vessels. So every time we fought a spirit... Sorry. Let me rephrase that. Every time we fought one of those guys that had like little flames on them and stuff like that, we would collect their spirit, and the spirit provided us with a few things. It provided us with a passive ability and an active ability. That recharged based on attack hits on targets, I think it was. I collected so many, and I felt like there wasn't a need to collect so many. I think I upgraded 2. I used the big-headed one, and then I used the one that provided me with an AoE solution for smaller enemies. Everything else had stuff and may have had usage. I know some of them I used for like poison resistance or fire resistance and stuff like that. I think Bane's in this thing. Sure. I found that I got so many of them, and the fights were just okay. They were just spongier of the same version of the monsters and stuff like that. With the exception of like mini bosses. That gave me its own thing. How could he have guessed on his first attempt? How? Music in this game. It was okay. Some areas had nice music. The music videos between acts, where I think they gave like some context of what happened prior to the act. I think they were artistically nice, but I don't think they provided much value outside of that. What else am I missing in the game? Armor system, whatever. Weapon system, whatever. I mean, I guess the nice thing about the weapon system... Well, the bad thing about the weapon system is that only one of the weapons actually had a change in, like, combos. But I already sort of talked about that, about how I didn't like the late combo of everything. I think that's it. I can't think of anything else that I've missed in this game in terms of bringing things up and down. It's a cool concept, well executed. It could have used a little bit more performance optimizations, a little bit more thought on the camera and how it works in smaller arenas. Very, very good story, or at least it's a very unique setting, because obviously we don't get a lot of games that are based on like Chinese mythos and their pantheon and stuff like that. So it's interesting. I like it. It's refreshing to see some of these things, and the designs were great. The gameplay was frustrating at times, but for the most part, it's solid. Performance was okay. Like, it ran not great at 60 FPS at whatever setting I was running it as. I don't think I was running it on high. I'm pretty sure I run most games on medium nowadays when I stream them, just to maintain a frame rate and to keep my GPU low, GPU usage low so I can stream. And it had a really unsatisfying ending and a really unsatisfying boss rush at the end. I am glad when I died I didn't have to repeat the phases, but a 4-phase final boss sucks. It sucks. Especially when it's in sequence. Because you do the first phase, especially in like you're running it through the first time, and then you finish the second phase and you've burnt all your resources, and oh good, a third phase. Oh well, surely there's not going to be a fourth phase, because now I've already burnt everything. Nope. Fourth phase. A difficult fourth phase too. And you know, the trope of like, oh, you have all your powers, let's strip them away. Seemed really a weird choice, because we just got them, used them for 2 fights, and then got them removed. The sense, especially, yeah, I just don't understand. I don't understand why it was done that way. Especially since the sense... Oh, that's what I didn't talk about. I didn't talk about the senses and their passive buffs. Honestly, because the passive buffs are passives, I have no idea how they affected anything. They could have just not been there. They could have just been key items. It might have been really good, might have been really bad, but at least on my playthrough, I didn't visibly see an impact. That doesn't mean there wasn't. It just means that I did not see it myself. So, let me talk about my rating of the games. Because a few people got upset on YouTube about how I rated Claire Obscure. And they're objectively wrong. That game's not a 10 out of 10. By any means of the imagination. And neither is this game going to be a 10 out of 10. Let me explain to you how my scaling works. Then you can be mad at me later. Games are 1 to 10. 10 is a perfect game. No flaws. Everything's great about it. I will suck its dick. 5 is an average game. Has an average experience. And a 1 is a dog shit game. I generally don't finish games that are below a 3. Your opinions are different than mine and therefore wrong. Yes. It's not even just opinions, but if you look at everything, if you look at a game through a rose-colored glasses and you think that it's perfect, you're wrong. I can't think of a game that's a 10. I can think of games that are 8s and 9s. Claire was an 8. Claire was a great game. But it's certainly not a 10. So, with that being said, I don't generally finish games below a 3. Because there are games that are worth my time that I will play that are not a 3. So, Black Myth Wukong. Where does that end up? Well, I have a thing for Soulsborne's games that are difficult. This game's difficulty, however, was not mechanically, but was due to its implementation. So I don't want to say, oh, let's give it some extra points from that. The game, however, is aesthetically beautiful, and I think that's worth something. And the fact that its uniqueness around the Chinese pantheon and stuff like that, and I recognized even some cutscenes and stuff like that. There was Nezra, which I don't think is part of Journey of the West. I just watched some Netflix and stuff like that and saw that there. I think this game is probably a 6 out of 10. Yeah. A slightly above average experience. This one's rates pretty low on replayability. Well, I would say that it's rates pretty low on replayability if you were to start from the beginning. There are reasons to do New Game Plus. There is stuff, weapons, armors, resources that are explicitly limited on a first playthroughs, like the Bull armor set, the Bull King's armor set. You have to play it a second time in order to get the full armor set. There are also 3 weapons that you can craft that are only available in New Games Plus. I can't find a reason why I'd ever play this game from scratch. New Game Plus, though, maybe a playthrough just to get the rest of it, see what that's all necessarily about. But certainly not from the beginning. And that's what I would call an average game. An average game to me, I don't replay. I finish the game, I got what I wanted out of it, I shelve it. Unless if some big content changes and stuff like that for it, I don't touch it again. That's just how I work. Some games I replay, and those get a higher rating. That's just how it is. And some games that do have a higher rating, like Claire. I can't see a reason why I'd replay Claire. It was a great game, but I finished the story. I did most of the content, and a lot of stuff is content I would have to grind in order to get access to. And I certainly don't want to put 30 hours in grinding just to get at some of the content that I missed. And then there's things like Diablo 2, which has a lot of... Sorry, that's some biased opinion right there. Diablo 2 actually has pretty low replayability for story, but it has a gameplay loop that allows you to do different builds, different characters, and challenge runs and stuff like that. I did say for Expedition or Claire Obscure that one of the reasons I would revisit that game would be to do a challenge run, because it just has the ability to. Like, what would a challenge run in Black Myth Wukong look like? No upgrading weapons? No armor? No healing? Like, those stop being challenged and become more grindy. Not for me. So, I think 6 out of 10. A slightly above average game, simply because of the setting and the content, the mythos, the fact that we haven't seen a lot of this story is probably the only reason why it's a 6. Otherwise, it would likely be a 4. If I'm going to be honest. It would probably be a 4. The game suffers in its combat loop in certain places. That makes it so I wouldn't want to play it because I'm just going to get frustrated. I'd rather play something like Elden Ring that has a better camera, not perfect, and has more variety in its weapons. And it would still be a Souls-like. So 6 out of 10 with an asterisk of if this game was in a different market where you saw a lot more like Chinese related stories, then this would likely be a 4 for me. But tell me what your thoughts are. If you're watching this on YouTube, tell me why I'm wrong in comment below, or come join my Discord and yell at me there, or send me shake your fist at the sky in my name, and I'll know. But with that being said, that's going to be it for today's stream, it for today's review. We already are at 2 hours. It's okay, a shorter stream. And I know for the months of July, I haven't been streaming a lot, or as much as I do. I was busy. August is going to be the same thing. deal with it. When September rolls around, things are probably going to be a little bit more stabilized in terms of my schedule. Allow me to stream regularly. With that also being said, I am occupied this Friday currently. That may or may not change. We'll find out. So we will start the next game on Monday, which is a long weekend. Well, at least up here it's a long weekend. I don't know about other places. Can't speak for other places. Sorry, I was checking to see where people are at so we can stream. Not stream, sorry. That we can send people off to. And I guess speaking of Elden Ring, Spoon in a Cup has just started his stream in Elden Ring. Not just started his stream, sorry. Just started his playthrough in Elden Ring. Looks like he's in Limgrave currently. So we'll go check out what they were doing. It looks like they were having a good time. But yeah, so for my YouTube folks, hit that like or dislike button. Hit the subscribe and notification bell if you'd like to see more of the VODs that I play, or come join me on Twitch. I'm also here with everyone else, saying hi. Miss you. Or come join Discord, say hello. With that being said, though, we're going to go right out to Spoon, a Cup, who is playing Elden Ring. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing up for today's stream. My name is Direct Assault. My name is Direct Assault. I hope everyone has a fantastic week, and I'll see you guys Monday, where we will play our next game. Should have voted on Discord. So, with that being said, take care. Have a nice day.